The emperor once granted our family a special favor when our father earned military merit. The future crown princess would come from the Shen family. When my sister and I turned 16, father chose me. My sister threw a massive tantrum at home, crying until she nearly fainted. She insisted father was biased, that I had stolen her prosperous marriage. I watched her grow thinner day by day, my heart aching with pity. I originally planned to yield this marriage to her, but father took my hand and spoke earnestly. Qingyi, you have always been cleverer and steadier than your sister since childhood. You are the one I value most, but you and your sister are blood sisters, bound by flesh and bone. When you become the crown princess in the future, never forget her. I looked into father's loving eyes and believed him. Later, I married into the Eastern Palace, becoming the crown princess everyone envied, but the world did not know the crown prince already had a white moonlight in his heart. He favored his concubine over his wife, allowing her to trample over me, the legitimate princess. I carried his child for 10 months, narrowly escaping death to give him a prince that very night. The concubine ordered my son taken from the birthing chamber, then she forced poison down my throat, claiming I died from excessive bleeding. After death, my soul floated in the air. I thought father would at least seek justice for me, but I saw him hold my sister's hand, his face beaming with joy. Why cry? Your sister died a worthy death. Back then, I didn't let you marry the prince because I knew he had someone in his heart. If you married him, you would suffer. But she was different. She was steady, patient, and obedient enough. Now she has given us a royal grandson, and the grandson is registered under that white moonlight's name. The prince got his true love, our Shen family got power. Isn't that perfect? Only then did I realize I was never father's most beloved daughter. I was merely the sacrifice he chose for the Shen family. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to the day father decided our marriages in this life. I swore I would never die for anyone again. 01. Today, your coming-of-age ceremony is over. You have both grown up. Father called my sister and me to his study. His face stern. My sister looked up, dazed and confused. Before being summoned, she was counting the gifts she received today in her small storeroom. She had no idea why father called us to the study in the middle of the night, but I knew, thinking about what was coming, I couldn't help clenching my fists quietly. Actually, 17 years ago, the emperor gave our family a special favor. Father paused for a second, his gaze sweeping over our faces. My sister still looked bewildered. I only lowered my brows, showing no expression. The future crown princess will come from our family. The crown princess, my sister gasped. That's Xiao Yu, the one whose talent outshines the capital and whose beauty rivals immortals. Qingxi, father's eyes flashed with disappointment. You have come of age today, yet you still speak so recklessly. How dare you utter the prince's name? My sister pouted. She was lively by nature, never caring for formalities. Besides, the prince was gentle and stunningly handsome. He was the dream man of many noble girls in the capital, even willing to be his concubine. But our family had the favor to produce a crown princess. Father turned his gaze to me, who had been silent all along, and said lovingly, I want Qingyi to be the crown princess. What do you think, sister? My sister's eyes reddened. Father, you're biased. Since the emperor didn't specify, we should compete to decide. You can't just pick my sister because she's more talented. Marriage isn't an exam. The prince marries a crown princess, not a tutor. If you want someone smart, why not pick from the Imperial Academy? 02. Father completely ignored my sister's grievance and anger. He only stared at me, waiting for my answer. I don't want to. I looked up and said, good, that's wonderful. Since you're willing. Father hadn't expected me to refuse. He had already spoken half his approval. Then he frowned in shock, staring at me. Even my sister stopped crying. Qingyi, what did you say? Father's tone turned serious. This is a favor others can only dream of. Then please go and decline it for the emperor. Father, a private promise made 17 years ago might now be just a joke. I lowered my eyelashes again, speaking coldly. In my last life, right after I died, the emperor appointed a new crown princess for the prince. Perhaps the emperor was sincere when he made that promise to my father, but over these 17 years, Father had retired from the frontier and stopped meddling in military affairs. Our family had long fallen to a secondary position in the capital. Having the crown princess come from our family wouldn't raise any eyebrows, but it was no longer the greatest support the emperor could give the prince. After I spoke, the study fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Have you lost your mind today? What nonsense are you spouting? Father's gaze toward me lost its usual warmth, his voice turned cold as he waved his hand impatiently. The coming-of-age ceremony was indeed exhausting. Go rest first. Come back to me tomorrow when your head is clear. 03 I performed a salute and pulled my sister out of the study. Once outside, tears still clung to her face, but she dared not speak. The prince is not a good match. Don't marry him either. Why? She was about to jump again, but seeing my expression, she weakly shut her mouth and said nothing. I looked at her reddened eyes and aggrieved face. It reminded me of her weeping for me after my death in my last life. When everyone had accepted my death, when father rejoiced in his promotion and wealth, when mother gradually accepted and was granted a noble title, only my sister truly grieved for me all along. She insisted on investigating whether I really died from childbirth complications. She was just headstrong and simple-minded, not a bad person in my last life. When the marriage was arranged, she wasn't angry because she was deeply in love with the prince. She was filled with a girl's fantasies. Believing the prince would be the perfect man from storybooks, she wanted to marry him because every noble girl in the capital wanted to. But such a perfect man was casually given to me first by father. I had been begging to see her before my wedding, but she refused me every single time. Yet on the night before I was to be escorted into the crown prince's estate, she slipped into my room. She shoved into my hands the marriage blessing talisman and the safety talisman she had personally prayed for at the Imperial Guardian Temple. Her voice was stiff, hard-edged. Since you're going to be the crown princess now, take care of yourself from now on. I'm still counting on you to back me up. Later, she had always been a sharp-tongued woman with a soft heart. Never able to express her feelings, of course, she also never bothered to hide her emotions. That was exactly why father hadn't chosen her in the last life. 04 She was straightforward, her heart unable to hold secrets. If she married into the Eastern Palace and discovered she was merely a decoy for the crown prince's true love, his white moonlight, she would cry, she would rage, she would turn the Eastern Palace upside down. She might even dare to take it all the way to the emperor's presence. But I was different. I had been raised since childhood to be sensible, to observe propriety, to consider the greater good. If I suffered injustice, I wouldn't speak of it. If I endured hardship, I would only bear it in silence. So father chose me, not because I was more valuable than Shi, but because I was more useful than her in my past life. After I died, my soul refused to scatter. I drifted back to the Shun residence. That was when I saw father standing in the ancestral hall. Kneeling beside him was a boy of 14 or 15. The youth wore a simple, clean green robe. His features bore a striking resemblance to father's, 5 or 6 parts similar. Father personally helped him to his feet, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. Cheng'en, don't be afraid, in a few more days, your father will have you officially entered into the Shun family registry. I froze in place. Cheng'en, Cheng'en, since when did I have a younger brother? Qingxi was also standing outside the ancestral hall, tear stains from crying for me still fresh on her face. 05 She stared blankly at that youth, her voice trembling. Father, who is he? Father frowned, as if slightly displeased by her loss of composure, but since things had come this far, he no longer intended to hide it. He is your younger brother. Qingxi's face turned deathly pale. Where did my sister and I get a younger brother? Father was silent for a moment, then said flatly, back when I was stationed at the border, I had a brief relationship with a woman. She gave birth to Cheng'en alone for me. It wasn't until she fell gravely ill 4 years ago that she sent someone with a token to find me. Qingxi took an incredulous step backward. So my sister has only just died, and you're already bringing him into the household? Father's face darkened instantly. What do you mean only just died? Your sister died a worthy death. She bore a royal grandson for the Shun family. The Shun family will become the maternal relatives of the future Son of Heaven. With this connection, when Cheng'en enters the family registry, inherits the title, and embarks on his official career, no one will dare to use his birth against him. My soul floated in midair, and suddenly I couldn't even cry anymore. So that was it. So the child I had carried for 10 months and nearly died giving birth to, wasn't just a gift for the crown prince to curry favor with his white moonlight, it was also a stepping stone for father to pave his son's way. Shen Qingxi's eyes were red as she asked, "What about me then? You already sent my sister into the Eastern Palace to die, so what about me?" Father glanced at her, his tone still calm. "You are a daughter of the Shen family. Naturally, you should also plan for the Shen family. I've already looked into the marriage arrangement with the Minister of Revenue's household. Once you marry into that family, when Cheng'an enters the court as an official, it will provide him with an additional layer of support." Shen Qingxi looked as if she were seeing him for the first time. She clutched her handkerchief so tightly, tears fell one by one, but father showed no sign of being moved. He only said, "He is your blood brother. In the future, he will also be your pillar. You two are the closest people to each other in this world." In that moment, I understood. Shen Qingxi and I had competed for so many years. We thought we were fighting for father's favor, for the best future the Shen family could offer, but in the end, we were just two dowries he had prepared for that son. After Shen Cheng'an entered the household, he wasn't entirely innocent either. He knew my bones were still warm, knew Shen Qingxi was being forced into marriage by father, yet he still accepted, with a clear conscience, the future I had bought with my life. Even when Shen Qingxi cried and made a scene, he softly urged her, "Since elder sister has already passed, those of us who are still alive must look forward. The better my official career, the better your life will be." Second sister, 06. In the past, when father hosted banquets and drank with his colleagues at home, he would always call me and my legitimate younger sister to stand before him, showing off with affectionate pride. Having two obedient daughters in this life is a blessing bestowed by heaven. If I had a son, I'd probably spend half my life running around and scheming for him. How could I enjoy such leisurely, carefree days as I do today? Back then, I always thought he truly loved me and my sister, until later, when father suddenly changed. He stopped neglecting his duties. He would often sigh deeply at home, his face full of worry. It turned out that was when he had learned of Shen Cheng'an's existence. But he wasn't regretting his one-time mistake, nor was he grieving that the woman had died of illness, never to see her again. No, he was bitterly resentful that she hadn't come to claim him sooner, because it had caused him to relinquish power early, making it difficult to carve out a path to glory for this son. But now the child was already half-grown, starting his education was too late. With his mediocre talent, how could he go far in his official career? Father couldn't sleep at night over this. He tossed and turned until finally, he came up with a brilliant plan: sacrifice my marriage and my sister's marriage to secure a bright future for his son. After all, he often said, my sister and I would eventually marry into someone else's family anyway. Even if he built a vast fortune for us, what use would it be? It would only add bricks and tiles to someone else's household. 07. Faced with Shen Qingxi's expression, wanting to speak but not daring to, completely unable to comprehend, I thought for a few seconds, then decided to tell her everything. After all, my next plan depended on her participation. Coming back to this life, alone, I still couldn't fight them all by myself. Elder sister, are you sure you don't have a fever? Shen Qingxi frowned, her face full of worry as she reached out to touch my forehead. I knew father had doted on us all these years. Even if I said it out loud, Shen Qingxi would find it hard to believe, but I still took her hand and said solemnly, tomorrow, I will take you to see all of this with your own eyes, but you still need to continue playing the part of the spoiled, willful girl you've always been. Shen Qingxi was half convinced, half doubtful, but afraid of upsetting me. She said nothing. The next day, Shen Qingxi came to see me with swollen eyes. I knew it. That girl hadn't taken a single word I said to heart last night. She must have gone back, thought it over, and felt more and more wronged, convinced that father favored me over her, and all I did was spin a story to comfort her, to ease her mind. I didn't waste another word. I grabbed her hand and dragged her straight out of the mansion, heading for Grand Tutor Xie's estate. In the past, he and father had been close friends. Father had invited him to teach my sister and me during our earliest lessons. Shen Qingxi treated him like her own grandfather. He was the one she relied on most, the one whose words she actually listened to. 08. So the moment we reached the Sierra States gate, before I could even open my mouth, Shen Qingxi's nose stung with tears. She charged straight inside and started wailing. Master, master, my father is so unfair to me. You have to stand up for me. He doesn't love me at all. He only loves my elder sister. The servants at the Sierra Estate had long known Shen Qingxi. Not a single one tried to stop her. By the time I made my way to the rear garden, my face carefully arranged into an expression of worry and guilt, Shen Qingxi was already wiping her tears with a handkerchief. Xie Tingjun stood beside her, helplessly stroking his beard as he tried to comfort her. How could your father possibly not love you? You've been causing trouble since you were very young. Who in the capital doesn't know your temper? If it weren't for your father protecting you, could you have grown up with such a bold personality? Your father is only thinking of your well-being. With your temperament and abilities, you simply cannot be the crown princess. Rather than forcing yourself into that position and suffering, it's better to let go of this obsession. You don't really like the crown prince. This is just a fit of stubbornness. Shen Qingxi sniffled beside him but said nothing. But I knew. She had already seen what I had told her. Otherwise, with her flamboyant nature, she would have been crying and arguing back at Xie Tingjun. There was no way she would be silent. 09. Grand Tutor, I called out anxiously. It's my fault for not watching Qingxi closely. She ran off on her own. She's still childish at heart. Please be lenient with her. With that, I pretended to be disappointed, grabbing Shen Qingxi's arm and pulling her toward the exit. Ah, yes, yes. Go back and speak well with your father. Don't let him scold Qingxi. This child just hasn't turned the corner yet. Xie Tingjuan's earnest advice followed us from behind. To anyone watching, he was simply a devoted teacher, caring for his student, that only made Shen Qingxi cry harder. It wasn't until we were inside the carriage that she finally managed to suppress her emotions. I saw him. Even though Shen Chengen left in a hurry, I still caught a glimpse. He looks 7 or 8 parts like father. There's no way I could mistake that. But how could Grand Tutor Xie? I lowered my lashes, unsure how to respond. In my past life, after I died, I learned that father had recognized Shen Chengen. He had entrusted him to Xie Tingjuan's care, with Xie personally mentoring him. Shen Qingxi had received a flood of information all at once. She simply couldn't accept it. That was the man she had treated as her own grandfather for 12 years of teaching, yet he had conspired with father to hide the truth from everyone. 10. The carriage continued forward, but not toward home. I took Shen Qingxi to visit Liu Ling, the daughter of the capital's largest imperial merchant. Using the excuse that Shen Qingxi and I had been quarreling and she was acting out, I asked Liu Ling to take us to her family's private jewelry vault, so Shen Qingxi could pick out a gift. The Liu family's jewelry primarily supplied the imperial household, but they also kept a private collection of rare treasures that were no less exquisite. Ordinary noble families had to verify their assets and book appointments half a year in advance just to see them, but I knew that on the 1st and 15th of every month, the Crown Prince's moonlight, his true love, would come here. Shen Qingxi and I had been browsing for less than the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, when a woman with a delicate face and a frail figure entered, surrounded by attendants like stars around the moon. The rare treasures that the world considered priceless, she casually tossed aside. Why are all the items this month so vulgar? Nothing catches my eye. Shen Qingxi watched as the exquisite gems were either broken or chipped. She was so furious she nearly stepped forward to stop her, but Liu Ling grabbed her arm and whispered, "It's fine. Whatever she damages, someone will pay double for." I sat calmly to the side, sipping my tea. What were these rare treasures worth? Really, in my past life, Liu Hongwan had a weak constitution, and childbirth was extremely risky, yet the crown prince was willing to use the daughter of a third-rank official as a surrogate for her. That showed just how deeply he doted on her. 11. As the daughter of the imperial merchant, Liu Ling knew many secrets, but the most important rule for a merchant was to keep their mouth shut. She might have known Liu Hongwan's identity, but she said nothing. I only let Shen Qingxi catch a glimpse of the payment channel Liu Hongwan had used before. It was easy enough for her to understand that channel, with all its twists and turns, ultimately traced back to the Crown Prince's influence. I squeezed Shinchingshi's hand. After years as sisters, she naturally understood my meaning. Her face suddenly darkened, and tears began to fall again. I don't want any of this. You always think that just because I'm not as good at my studies as you, I'm stupid. You try to fob me off with these things. Once you marry into the Eastern Palace, what couldn't you have? Father is biased and insists on you going. Why can't I have the same chance? Once you marry into the Eastern Palace, won't the Crown Prince's private treasury and inner household all be under your control? Then you'll have only the finest things. Why bother picking here? Very few people knew about the Emperor's promise to our family regarding the Crown Princess position. Even Liu Ling hadn't reacted yet, but Liu Hongwan suddenly looked up, walked over quickly, and spoke in a soft voice. What's wrong with this young lady? Why are you crying so hard? Shinchingshi, like a wronged child finding a protector, poured out her grievances. The Emperor promised my father that the Crown Princess would come from our family. Without a second thought, my father chose my elder sister. Yes, my sister's talent is unmatched in the capital, and she's skilled at managing the household. She was even taught etiquette by the Empress's own nursemaid when she was young. But why wouldn't father even give me a chance? Why did he decide directly? 12. With every word Shinchingshi spoke, Liu Hongwan's face grew paler. In my past life, it was father who went to the Emperor to mention the matter from years ago. Only after the Emperor issued the decree did the Crown Prince learn of it. He deeply loved Liu Hongwan, and he knew that before ascending the throne, he absolutely could not defy the imperial order, so he went to great lengths to calm Liu Hongwan down, to appease her. He even secretly cooperated with my father. He promised that any child I bore would be raised by Liu Hongwan. That way, my father could still be a relative of the imperial family, and Liu Hongwan could ascend to the position of empress. But now, the Crown Prince didn't even know about this yet, and Liu Hongwan knew even less. She was just an orphan the Crown Prince had rescued from a pleasure boat during his journey south of the Yangtze River, with no family to rely on, no scholarly accomplishments or talents to her name, only a pretty face. The only thing she could hold on to was the Crown Prince's favor. She was terrified, of course, terrified that some noble lady of high birth would marry the Crown Prince and take control of the inner household, so she had planned to bear a son before the prince took a wife, to secure her position. But who would have guessed her body was weak, making pregnancy nearly impossible? That was why she drowned her anxious heart in reckless spending, flinging silver like water to soothe the turmoil within. Yet now, the very thing she feared was on the verge of becoming reality. How could she just sit back and wait for doom to fall? 13. This young miss, what you say, is it all true? The Crown Prince's marriage is a matter of great import. How could it be settled so quickly? Liu Hongwan twisted her handkerchief in her hands, her face still painted with a mask of concern. My father once accompanied the Emperor on a personal campaign. In those closest moments, they wore the same battle robes and shared the same meat at meals. This bond is one that others cannot match. Shinchingshi spoke, her words spilling out as if she had let something slip. Father never wanted any of this, really. Otherwise, with this promise hanging for years, why would he only bring it up now? All because he happened to learn he had a son. He was afraid that when he grew old, his daughter would have no one to watch over her in the Eastern Palace. But now, with a son, that son can protect his sister at court. Then why did he choose you? Why not me? What makes me worse than her? It's just favoritism. None of you love me. I hurriedly poured a cup of tea for Shinchingshi. Stop crying. Stop crying. Father didn't mean it that way. If I become the Crown Princess, I will never forget you. Liu Hongwan caught the opening she could exploit, and fell silent. She only studied me with a sidelong glance, her eyes darkening. Liu Ling stood nearby, his eyes fixed on his nose fixed on his heart. He had always known how a merchant must survive amid shifting, treacherous currents. 14. As we left, Liu Hongwan gave me a long, deep look before turning away. I struggled to suppress the excitement and tension churning within me. I led Shinchingshi back to the manor. Your behavior today was utterly disgraceful. Father stood waiting at the gate, seeing us return. His face was twisted with rage. First, you stormed the Xie residence. Then you go crying to the Liu mansion. Shen Qingshi stiffened her neck, ready to retort, but I gently pulled her back. Qingyi, I have always held high hopes for you, yet you indulged Qingshi in such folly. It truly disappoints me. Father, the crown prince already has someone in his heart. I do not wish to marry him. Power and status are but external things. Why not find me a man of my own choosing? The plan was already in motion. At this point, I laid my cards on the table. Father's face stiffened for a moment, then he shook his sleeves. So what if he has someone in his heart? You are my daughter, that seductress is nothing but a commoner. With your intelligence, winning the crown prince's favor is no difficult task. Even though I had known this outcome all along, my throat still burned with a bitter ache. But father, even Qingshi knows that love is not divided by intelligence. Not to mention that the crown prince may not even like me. Even if he did fall for me, how much humiliation would I have to swallow in the beginning? How many schemes would I have to endure? One misstep in the Eastern Palace could shatter me into pieces. I closed my eyes, forcing down the sob that threatened to choke me, and asked, can you truly bear to see that? A flicker of reluctance and hesitation passed through father's eyes, but in the end, he loved Cheng'en more. He only turned his back to me and said, say no more. This is a grace that others would beg for but never receive. My eyes trembled. If that was the case, then I had no more guilt or hesitation left. 15. As father entered the palace to seek the emperor's favor, a fatal horse-riding accident occurred in the capital. A young man lost his life beneath the hooves of a startled horse. When father's carriage emerged from the palace, it was blocked by a crowd, but he had no idea what had happened. He was only eager to return and tell me that the imperial decree had been issued, and I had no choice but to accept my fate. So he sent his attendants ahead to disperse the crowd. He sat in his carriage, passing by the still warm body of Shen Cheng'en. He even frowned in disgust when the attendant reported the incident. When father returned to the manor, there was even a smile on his face. That smile was exactly the same as the one he wore the day I married into the Eastern Palace in my past life. He stepped into the main hall and waved for the servants to leave, keeping only me and Shen Qingshi. The decree has been issued. He looked at me, his voice barely containing his excitement. In 3 days, the Ministry of Rites will deliver the betrothal edict. Qingyi, you've made your scene, and your anger should have cooled by now. From now on, you are the future crown princess. You must act with more composure. Don't be so willful again, like today. Shen Qingshi jerked her head up, her eyes blazing with fury. I pressed her hand down and kept my gaze lowered, silent. Father thought I had finally accepted my fate, and his expression softened, but I laughed coldly in my heart. This situation was already far from what he had originally imagined. If I couldn't marry into the Eastern Palace because of Shen Cheng'en's death, I would be overjoyed. But if I still ended up marrying in, with the leverage I had to bring down Liu Hongwan and the memories of my past life, who would emerge victorious in this life remained to be seen. 16. Father was in an extremely good mood, yet he still put on the face of a loving father. He patted my shoulder and said with heavy meaning, when you become the crown princess and taste the benefits of power, then you'll understand the effort and importance I've placed on you. I lowered my brows and said nothing. Suddenly, hurried footsteps sounded from outside. The steward burst in, almost crawling, his face ashen. Master, something terrible has happened. Father frowned. What's all the panic for? The steward knelt on the ground, his voice trembling so badly he could barely form words. The Xie Grand Tutor's manor sent word. They said, something has happened to young Master Cheng'en. The teacup in father's hand crashed to the floor, shards of porcelain scattered everywhere. The color drained from his face, bit by bit. Who did you say? The steward pressed his forehead to the ground, his voice shaking. Young Master Cheng'en. He went out today to buy books for Grand Tutor Xie. On his way through Vermilion Bird Street, he was struck by a startled horse. He is gone. Father's body swayed violently. Shen Qingshi stood frozen. While I slowly raised my eyes, it had finally come. In my past life, Shen Cheng'en had been hidden away by father so well. He wasn't brought back to the Shen manor until after I died. Everyone knew the Shen family's eldest daughter had died with dignity. The Shen family was ennobled because of the imperial grandson, and father's glory knew no bounds. Then Shen Chengen entered the family register, inherited the title, studied under famous masters, and entered officialdom. His path was smooth and unobstructed, with no one daring to raise any objection. But this life was different. His existence had been exposed far too early. Liu Hongwan knew, she knew because of what was said that day. She would never allow a son of the Shen family to stand behind me, the future crown princess, as my pillar of support in the Eastern Palace, even if that pillar was nothing more than my own empty boasting. But as long as Liu Hongwan believed it, Shen Chengen had to die. The legitimate daughter of a third-rank official might not be easy to topple, but an illegitimate son with no status or title, she didn't believe she couldn't move him. 17. Father charged out of the mansion like a madman. When Shen Qingxi and I followed him to Vermilion Bird Street, many commoners still lingered around. The bloodstains on the ground had already been covered with sand and dirt, but the stench of iron still hung in the air, refusing to dissipate. Father staggered, grabbing a passerby by the arm and demanding, "Where is the body? Who did this?" The passerby, frightened by his terrifying expression, could only reply, "The authorities have already taken it away. They couldn't leave it blocking the road." As for the culprit, I heard it was a drunken beggar. That beggar was always raving mad. No one knows where he found a horse. He rode it wildly through the market, causing this tragedy. The authorities have already taken him into custody. Father spat out a mouthful of blood, but without resting, he rushed straight to the government office. Shen Qingxi's eyes showed both pity and lingering fear. I turned to look at her, my voice cold. I merely did what they did in the previous life, just added fuel to the flames. If we don't strike first, Liu Hongwan's target will be me. I hadn't left them without an out. If only yesterday, Father had shown a shred of conscience and backed down for me, everything could have been stopped. 18. I returned to the mansion and slept straight through until dawn. No matter how bloody the storm raged outside, I paid it no heed. The crown prince doted on Liu Hongwan. Of course he would clean up after her, but Father's pride and joy, his only hope, had been taken. He wouldn't let it go quietly. The two factions clashed endlessly. No matter how cleanly the crown prince tried to handle it, he couldn't withstand Father's relentless digging, day and night. In the end, the crown prince could only hastily push forward a groom as a scapegoat, claiming that the groom had failed to watch the horses properly, allowing a wild horse to escape, which led to this disaster. Does the crown prince think I'm senile? How could a wild horse from the outskirts sneak into the imperial city unnoticed? And how could that mad beggar just happen to find it? Father bit down hard in the court, refusing to let go. The crown prince's face twisted with impatience as he snorted coldly. How would I know about such trivial matters? The groom has already confessed, and your daughter is about to marry into the Eastern Palace. Why must you recklessly slander people over a mere commoner? In his desperation, Father finally blurted out, "That was my only son. You commit such a grave wrong, and you still expect me to marry my daughter to you? Dream on." 19. I only rested at home for a few days. Then I received news that the betrothal had been annulled, not because of Father's rage, but because of public outcry. The people believed that Father, who refused to let this matter go, was a rare and upright official. For the sake of a commoner's justice, he had even claimed the victim as his own son, truly loving the people as his own children, and to seek justice for the common folk, he was willing to give up his daughter's position as crown princess. Overnight, public indignation flared. The people clamored for the truth. The matter grew larger and larger. Even the imperial examination scholars were moved by this affair. They wrote essays praising Father's noble integrity. Some even went on strike from the exams, calling for a purge of corrupt governance. Princes breaking the law should be punished like commoners. The tears Father shed for his lost son in their eyes were the blood and tears of a righteous official. The emperor had no choice but to annul the marriage and order a full investigation. Thus, the raging fire eventually burned its way to Liu Hongwan. The emperor, in his fury, threw her into prison, awaiting execution. As for the crown prince, misled by a wicked woman, he was fined a year's salary. No matter how dissatisfied Father was with this outcome, the emperor would never truly punish the crown prince over such a trivial matter. 20. Left with no choice, Father could only petition for a posthumous title for Shen Chengen. He even brought him into the ancestral hall and recorded him in the Shen family genealogy. The outside world still believed this was father's silent act of defiance. On the day Shen Chengen entered the Shen family shrine, many commoners spontaneously gathered outside the Shen mansion. I stood under the eaves, watching as mother urged father to change into his court robes. His fingertips trembled with pain, yet he still had to go out and bow to the crowd, saying, "Please, everyone, return home. I merely fulfilled my duty as an official. I am unworthy of such deep affection." The moment his words fell, someone in the crowd shouted, "Lord Shen is a man of great righteousness. Lord Shen would rather sacrifice his daughter's wealth and rank to seek justice for a commoner, truly the pure stream of our dynasty," and he even welcomed a commoner into the ancestral shrine, truly loving the people as his own children. Father's face twisted between pale and green. I let out a soft laugh in my heart. In the past, he used filial piety, family honor, and father-daughter bonds to pressure me. Now, this city full of people was the shackles I had forged for him. Wasn't he so fond of his reputation? Then I would make sure he could only be a good official for the rest of his life. In my previous life, I was publicly declared dead from childbirth complications, buried with the rights of a crown princess. My funeral was grand and spectacular. Father had held Shen Chengen close and said hypocritically, "Your sister died with dignity and honor. Our Shen family has risen even higher because of it. That's also a good thing. It's just that her fate was thin, she couldn't enjoy it." Now, in this life, it was Shen Chengen's turn. I wanted to see if he could still be as carefree as he was in the past. 21. "Sister, now you can finally rest easy. Shen Qingxi came to find me on purpose." I gazed at the scenery outside the window, a trace of melancholy in my heart. Yes, on the surface, my revenge was complete, but there was still one person lurking in the shadows, who had also added fuel to the fire, still alive and well, the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince's reputation for benevolence was well known, but who would have thought that inside the Eastern Palace, he could turn a blind eye to Liu Hongwan's torment of me. Every time I was framed, Liu Hongwan's eyes would redden and he would always hold her protectively, then look at me and say, "Hongwan is not that kind of person. This matter ends here. Hongwan is not malicious. She didn't mean it this time. Hongwan has already apologized. As the Crown Princess, you must be magnanimous." The world tilted. I was drowning in a sea of weakness. My body shattered from childbirth. I hadn't even heard the child's first cry, that fragile sound that should have anchored me to life. But before I could grasp it, Liu Hongwan had already taken him from my arms, her servant swift and silent. She stood at the foot of my bed, her silhouette cutting against the dim light, looking down at me with a soft, venomous smile. "Sister Shen, you were born into privilege, and fate has always smiled upon you," she murmured, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But if this child is recorded under your name, how will I ever find my place here? You already have so much. Pity me, just this once." Then the bowl of poison was forced past my lips. The liquid burned, searing a path down my throat, and as the venom spread, my vision began to blur. He came to the Crown Prince, but not to deliver justice. No, he summoned the imperial physician and the midwife, orchestrating a charade of a difficult childbirth, covering Liu Hongwan's tracks. I reached out, my hand trembling, desperate to grasp his sleeve, to make him see, but he recoiled, avoiding my touch. "Your child will be named Crown Prince," he whispered, his voice low and cold. "The Shen family will be ennobled. Go in peace." Ha! I felt the blood surge up, choking my words. How could I go in peace? What did it matter to me, the child's future, the Shen family's prospects? I was dying here, and others profited from my death. How could I possibly rest? Perhaps heaven itself could not bear to witness such an ending, for it granted me a second chance at life. Yet even now, could I not shake the Crown Prince's hold? "Sister, what are you thinking?" Shen Qingxi's voice pulled me back to the present. I looked at her, and suddenly, I realized my mistake. The Crown Prince was not untouchable. All I needed was to add more weight to his vulnerabilities. Then he would become like Shen Qingxi, his emotions laid bare, his actions rash. One Liu Hongwan might make him hesitate, waver in indecision. But add a child he had longed for. Would that be enough to overwhelm his reason? I sought out Liu Ling. She had traveled far and wide with her father since childhood, and for a price, she could procure any secret medicine. When I visited her again under the guise of buying jewelry, I asked if there existed a drug that could simulate pregnancy. Liu Ling looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes, but she said nothing, merely writing a number on the table with her finger. Once I had the secret drug, the rest was simple. I mixed it into the prison meals. Even though the Crown Prince kept Liu Hongwan in his thoughts, her food was inspected daily, and physicians visited every other day to check her pulse, ensuring she suffered no hardship in her cell. But the drug was not poison, and the prison was not the Eastern Palace. Evading the food checks was easy. Within days, the Crown Prince received news of Liu Hongwan's pregnancy. He could no longer sit still, nor could he plan for the long term. The woman he loved, now carrying his child, how could he let her remain in that harsh environment? That very night, he took the imperial token and entered the palace, begging the emperor to pardon Liu Hongwan. But the emperor refused to even see him. A child born of a criminal would only be a stain. The imperial family never lacked heirs. How could the emperor's heart soften? The events unfolded even more fiercely than I had anticipated. The next morning at court, the Crown Prince knelt before the entire assembly, straight-backed in the Golden Throne Hall, pleading for the emperor to commute Liu Hongwan's death sentence. His words were earnest. She carried imperial blood, and the crime should not extend to the unborn child. He offered to confine himself to the Eastern Palace for 3 months and reduce his fief, all for the chance to bring Liu Hongwan back to the palace for her pregnancy. The court erupted in shock. My father stood among the officials, his face ashen. His son's body was barely cold. And now the Crown Prince pleaded for the woman who had murdered his child, even seeking to pardon her death sentence. A public slap to his face. The emperor sat on his dragon throne, his expression dark enough to drip water. "Do you know what you are saying?" he thundered. "As the heir apparent, you disregard the law and plead for a criminal woman." The Crown Prince pressed his forehead to the ground, his voice hoarse. "But she carries my flesh and blood. I cannot watch my child die with its mother before it is even born. I beg your majesty for mercy." Ridiculous. The emperor slammed his hand on the table. "I see you have been bewitched by that vixen. Imperial blood. How can royal lineage be born of a criminal? This child cannot be kept." The Crown Prince's head shot up, disbelief in his eyes. "Father, enough." The emperor waved his sleeve, his voice cold as ice. "Issue my decree. Liu Hongwan, for seducing the heir apparent, is sentenced to death by poisoned wine, to be executed immediately. To uphold the law." The Crown Prince returned to the Eastern Palace in despair. He never imagined that his plea would become Liu Hongwan's death warrant, but the Crown Prince would not accept this fate. That afternoon, word spread that he had dispatched his trusted assassins. They had already smuggled Liu Hongwan out of the prison, sending her to Jiangnan to live under a false identity. The woman who drank the poisoned wine was merely a substitute. When I heard the news, I was in the courtyard admiring flowers with Shen Qingxi. She clutched her handkerchief, her voice tense. "Sister, would the Crown Prince really dare to raid the imperial prison, to swap a prisoner right under the emperor's nose? That's tantamount to treason. What wouldn't he dare?" I laughed coldly. In his heart, Liu Hongwan and the child mean more than anything. Before, he still cared about his dignity as the heir, but now that the emperor wants to kill his beloved and their child, he has lost all composure. I had foreseen this move. My father, having served in the court for years, knew these tactics well. That very day, he sent a secret letter to the censorate, detailing the time, route, and number of assassins the Crown Prince would use to raid the prison. The next day, news spread across the capital. The heir apparent had privately dispatched assassins to raid the prison, attempting to free a condemned prisoner, an act of rebellion. The emperor, in a fury, ordered the Crown Prince confined to the Eastern Palace for reflection. Though his position was not officially stripped, any discerning eye could see that his favor had waned, and his throne was now precarious. Liu Hongwan, secretly sent to Jiangnan, was intercepted by my father's men. The emperor, enraged that she had seduced the heir and tarnished the royal dignity, ordered no further trial. A single cup of poisoned wine ended all her paths to life. When the Crown Prince heard the news, his rage sent him into a faint. When he awoke, his mind was clouded, day and night. He muttered about Liu Hongwan and their child. I could no longer bear any great responsibility. I could only be deposed and confined to live in seclusion. My father, after this incident, was also mentally and physically exhausted. He had lost the emperor's favor. He could only voluntarily request retirement. All that remained was a good name among the common people in my past life. I thought he wouldn't grieve for my death. After all, I had enjoyed the honor of being the crown princess. In this life, I would give him that good reputation. He had sacrificed his own son to make the Shen family's name even more illustrious. He himself was hailed as the head of the civil officials. He had secured a brighter future for me and my legitimate sister. I think he must have been very happy. The noonday sun fell on me, warm and cozy. I slightly curled the corners of my lips. At last, I could begin a new life now. Let me tell you the second story. My husband was impotent but virtuous. He brought a man back for me. He's an outsider, and he's handsome. Once we succeed in borrowing his seed, we can just throw him out. We pretended to be brother and sister, and carried out the plan as scheduled. Unexpectedly, that man was like a living Buddha. Not only did he get me pregnant, but before leaving, he also gave me a large sum of money. A rustic village woman, unworthy of matching with me. Don't pester me from now on. My husband was so angry he wanted to fight him to the death. I cried and stopped him. Brother, forget it, don't hurt him. Then I turned and whispered to him, in this day and age, a duck that works for free and even pays you is hard to find. Let's just pretend and let it go. We worked together to send our benefactor away. We used his money to buy land and open a shop. We had a son, and our life was comfortable. 3 years later, the Crown Prince revisited the old place and ran into our family of 3. He went mad on the spot. What a fine pair of brother and sister you are. You treated me like a fool and completely fooled me. 01 On the day Helan Zhao was about to leave, many people came to the village. They were all clad in armor and didn't look like good people. I stood dumbfounded at the door, staring at the man who had changed into luxurious brocade clothes. Yi, what's going on with you? Helan Zhao turned his head, his gaze indifferent. I've made breakfast, swept the yard, washed and hung the clothes. Miss Liu, my injuries are healed. They've come to take me back. I was stunned for a moment, then rushed over to hug him. You're leaving. But I haven't yet. The word pregnancy was about to leave my lips. When I swallowed it back in panic, I couldn't let him know I was using him to borrow seed. But I don't want you to leave yet. I squeezed out a few tears and looked at him with grievance. Why do you have to leave? Weren't we happy together during this time? Helan Zhao stared at me blankly, seeming moved. It wasn't until the person behind him called out, Your Highness, that he came back to his senses. He waved his hand, and someone presented gold. This is my compensation to you. Don't pester me anymore. I was shocked, speechless by the small mountain of gold. He was actually this rich. Didn't Xie Jingxing say he was picked up from a ditch, and he was covered in severe injuries, penniless? That's why we dared to plan on borrowing his seed. We would wait until I was pregnant, then drive him away. How did it look now? Like Helan Zhao was more like a noble who had fallen on hard times, someone of considerable background. I was afraid I had gotten into trouble and didn't dare take the money. Yi, but this isn't what I want. I just want you to give me a child. Xie Jingxing and I wanted a child, even if it was someone else's seed, that was fine. But Helan Zhao didn't listen to my explanation. He coldly interrupted me. The status you want, I cannot give you. Miss Liu, you are a rustic village woman, unworthy of matching with me. Don't pester me. I was stunned for a moment and slowly stepped back. So even a handsome man could be so heartless. Just last night, he had been intimate with me, acting as if he loved me to death. The creaking of the bed had made Xie Jingxing so angry he ran out the door in the middle of the night. And today, he called me a rustic village woman in public. At that moment, I fully realized my husband's goodness. He was far more handsome than Helan Zhao, and he was faithful and virtuous. 02 Who do you think you are, daring to speak to her like that? Just then, Xie Jingxing returned, holding a little rabbit in his hand. He was trembling with anger. He handed the rabbit to me and charged at Helan Zhao, ready to fight him. She is the best girl in the world. She has never wronged you. You heartless man. Why don't you want her? Helan Zhao's men saw this and were about to draw their swords. Who dares to be insolent? I quickly grabbed Xie Jingxing. Brother, forget it. Forget it. I secretly glanced at Helan Zhao, afraid he would get angry. Brother, don't hurt him. But the one I truly wanted to protect was Xie Jingxing. He had just come back and hadn't grasped the situation. Fortunately, Helan Zhao was still composed and stopped his men. This is Miss Liu's elder brother, also my lifesaver. Xie Jingxing sneered, I truly regret saving you. I had to pull him into a corner and whisper, husband, forget it, let him go, we'll plan the seed borrowing another time. Besides, in this day and age, a duck that works for free and even pays you is hard to find. Let's just pretend and let it go. Xie Jingxing still wouldn't give up. But he bullied you. Why didn't he give you a status? I was shocked. What would I want a status for? My heart only has you. I'm not going with him. Xie Jingxing was stunned, incredulous. Wantang, he is clearly a big shot. Are you really willing to continue living this poor, hard life with me? So, he thought I had changed my heart, but he still stood up for me. But I'm not stupid. I know who treats me well. What are you thinking? I not only want to live with you, I want to live with you for a lifetime. Besides, with his money, where would the hard life be? I tugged at his sleeve. The only regret is that you've suffered injustice, and I haven't gotten pregnant yet. Xie Jingxing was a disciple raised by a poison doctor. As a child, he was forced to be a medicine man and suffered greatly. Although it didn't affect his ability to perform in bed, he couldn't father children. We drifted through life, without parents, and our desire for offspring grew stronger. It's okay. Xie Jingxing took my hand and was about to comfort me, when he suddenly paused, wanting, don't be sad first, it seems you have a joyful pulse. I held the rabbit and cried tears of joy. Husband, we're going to have a child. Xie Jingxing was also deeply moved. This time, I really didn't save him for nothing. He gave us a child, and money too. 03. I staged a scene with Xie Jingxing. I refused to take Helan Zhao's money, even if it meant death, only crying and begging him not to abandon me. I just want to follow you. Please don't leave me. But Xie Jingxing accepted the money and pulled me up by force. Sister, stop crying. Let him go. He's not worth it. One of us wept. The other helped me stand. Helan Zhao was silent for a long time, then crouched down to wipe my tears. Wanting, I've wronged you. Take care of yourself. He left me the handkerchief. Then he turned to Xie Jingxing and spoke solemnly. Brother Liu, I have to go. Remember to take good care of her for me. Xie Jingxing glared at him with hatred. My own wife. He almost slipped up but corrected himself in time. My own sister, of course I'll take care of her. I don't need your advice. Helan Zhao said nothing more, mounted his horse swiftly, gave me one last look, and rode away without a trace of lingering attachment. With his departure, the courtyard fell empty. Only Xie Jingxing and I remained, along with 300 taels of gold. It gleamed so brightly it was almost terrifying. Quick, quick, hide the gold. We had never possessed such wealth before. Xie Jingxing and I didn't dare leave the house. We both lay on the bed, guarding the gold, our eyes red from sleeplessness. Tell me, what kind of person is he? So rich. I heard them call him Your Highness. Xie Jingxing was the more worldly one. If it's Your Highness, then he's either a prince or a crown prince. Oh. I picked up a gold ingot and tossed it playfully. Xie Jingxing looked up at me, his tone a little tense. Wanting, it's not too late for you to regret. He probably hasn't gone far. I laughed dismissively. Regret what? He's just lucky to be born into the right family. Even without you, he and I were never from the same world. Originally, I had felt guilty about the whole secret borrowing affair with Helan Zhao, so during those days, I treated him very well, but now, abandoning me like this, afraid I'd cling to him. He was clearly just a man who sowed his seeds everywhere. Even my guilt had vanished. Husband, if we count the time, he should be far away by now. We should think about how to spend all this money. Xie Jingxing was a true henpecked husband. I'll do whatever you say. I excitedly spread my arms and gathered the gold into my embrace. Good, then listen to me. 04. A few days later, I moved with Xie Jingxing. We went to a town with beautiful mountains and clear waters, where there were carriages and boats, roads in all directions, bustling morning markets and lively night fairs. I bought a 3-courtyard mansion. Madam has excellent taste. This used to be a private residence of a former official. If it weren't for the Crown Prince's recent visit, arresting a batch of corrupt officials, this property wouldn't even have come onto the market. I linked arms with Xie Jingxing, pressed my thumbprint, and smiled sweetly. Then I really should thank that Crown Prince. We settled there. Half a month later, I secretly bought a medical clinic and mysteriously took Xie Jingxing to see it. Do you like it here? He stared at the plaque reading Xie's medical clinic and stood frozen for a long time. This is, for me. Xie Jingxing was a disciple of a poison doctor, with exceptional medical skills. Before, he only gathered herbs in the mountains and sold them to pharmacies for money. It was a real waste of his talent. I'm afraid I won't do it well. That I'll waste your kindness. I cupped his face in my hands. Back then, He Lanjiao was so badly injured. If it weren't for you, would he have woken up? If you don't believe in yourself, at least believe in my judgment, right? Xie Jingxing's eyes reddened, and he pulled me into his embrace. He let go and started working as I expected. He excelled at treating difficult and complex illnesses, and soon gained a small reputation. Even the Crown Prince, who was temporarily staying at the prefectural governor's mansion, summoned him for treatment when he came back. He even brought me some yellow apricot cakes from the mansion. Did you really see the Crown Prince? What does he look like? It was early summer, and the weather was getting hot. I was pregnant and not fit to go out, so I could only listen to him talk about the outside world. Xie Jingxing shook his head. I didn't see him. Those noble people consult doctors through a curtain. But his pulse. He paused. What is it? I asked, confused. It showed both severe injury and weakness, and also, Xie Jingxing leaned close to my ear and whispered, excessive indulgence, probably not very restrained even while recovering. I could already imagine how colorful this Crown Prince's private life must be. Xie Jingxing laughed at my reaction. Probably no one else dared to say it, so they thought it was some serious illness. I used some rare herbs for him. He should be fine now. He sat down and took my pulse again, wanting, You're almost past 3 months. Your pregnancy is very stable. I leaned forward, staring straight at him, my fingertips tracing across his palm. The neighbor auntie shared her experience with me after the first 3 months. You can. Xie Jingxing understood what I meant, and his ears slowly turned red, wanting, that's just a rumor, it's not reliable. I lowered my head, leaned in, and kissed him. You're a doctor, you know what's safe. Xie Jingxing silently lowered his head and said nothing. I couldn't help but laugh. This was exactly how he looked when he was about to do something mischievous. 05 A month later, the Crown Prince was about to leave. Xie Jingxing was summoned by Prefectural Governor Zhao. Dusk fell, and he still hadn't come home, afraid something had happened to him. I went to inquire personally and learned the truth. Xie Jingxing had cured the Crown Prince, and Governor Zhao intended to recommend him as a medical officer, but he refused, and was detained. Madam Xie, becoming a medical officer is a wonderful opportunity. Please persuade Dr. Xie. I went to see Xie Jingxing. He had been subjected to private punishment and was lying face down on the earthen bed, holding my hand tightly. I only want to be with you. I don't want to go anywhere. Of course, I understood his feelings. Wait for me. I have a plan. Governor Zhao wasn't forcing the recommendation out of malice, but to curry favor with the Crown Prince. I waited at the entrance of the prefectural governor's mansion and stopped the Crown Prince's carriage. Your Highness, I am the wife of Dr. Xie. I have a favor to ask. The cold wind mixed with slanting rain. My voice was a little muffled. Who dares to disturb the Crown Prince? After the guard heard my explanation, he went to report to the carriage. The Crown Prince's voice cut through the air like a blade. The matter concerns the physician Xie, who treated me not long ago. He refuses to enter the palace as a medical officer and has been forcibly detained. The carriage curtain fluttered in the wind. Who kneels before me? I was lost in a daze for a fleeting moment. How could that voice be so familiar? As if I had heard it somewhere before. Your Highness, it is the wife of physician Xie. She is with child. Slender, pale fingers reached out, curling the curtain aside. My gaze locked onto that spot without wavering. Surely, the person inside must be the Crown Prince himself. The curtain rose slowly, revealing his chin, his lips, his nose. "Madam Xie, mind your manners," a bystander reminded me, and I quickly lowered my head. I recalled what Xie Jingxing had said. Nobles had strict rules. They disliked being stared at by commoners. That distant gaze swept over me, seeming to linger for a moment. A heavy silence fell. The palace lacks no medical officers, but a child should not be without a father. Let Prefect Zhao release her husband. The man withdrew his hand. The curtain fell. The carriage began to move away slowly. I remained kneeling, watching the departing carriage, my mind drifting. He really does resemble He Lanjiao, surely. There couldn't be such a coincidence in this world. It shouldn't be possible. How could it be? With the Crown Prince's words, Prefect Zhao immediately released Xie Jingxing. The night was thick with darkness as I supported the injured Xie Jingxing. Walking all the way home on the road, I recounted everything about stopping the prince's carriage. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I feel the Crown Prince's voice is very similar to He Lanjiao's. Xie Jingxing stiffened for an instant. "Are you saying He Lanjiao is the current Crown Prince?" He pressed his lips together, turning to look at me. "Could it be that you misheard his voice?" "How could I mishear it?" I replied. Without thinking, but catching his slightly pale face, I quickly coughed. "Perhaps I did mishear it." Xie Jingxing gave a faint smile. "It's fine, I trust your judgment of him." But I detected a hint of inexplicable loss in his tone. As we crossed the threshold, the night wind brushed against our faces. Xie Jingxing lowered his head, coughing softly into his fist, his body unsteady as he leaned into my arms. I held him firmly. "Are you all right?" He took the opportunity to wrap his arms around my waist, lowering his head to stare straight into my eyes, his tone sincere. "If he is nothing, you don't need to avoid mentioning him in front of me. I don't think he's someone worth us both avoiding." In silent agreement. Truly, I was stunned for a moment. I hadn't expected him to say that. "Of course, I don't think." Before I could finish, he silenced me with a very gentle kiss. "Wanting, just say he is nothing." I gazed into his eyes, sinking into the seduction of his tenderness. He is nothing. Even if he truly were the current Crown Prince, to me, he would be nothing. Hearing this, Xie Jingxing's lips curved slightly, and he held me even tighter. 2 days later, I ran into that guard at the Xie family medical hall. "Madam Xie, congratulations. His Highness the Crown Prince ordered me to deliver this calligraphy to Physician Xie." The scroll unrolled slowly, revealing 4 characters: benevolent hands, kind heart. The surrounding crowd burst into cheers and applause. Now, the Xie family medical hall will truly become famous. Only I stood frozen in place. I stared blankly at those 4 characters, and in an instant, He Lanjiao's figure flashed through my mind. A spring evening, he sat by the window, brush in hand, expression focused. I crept up behind him and read aloud, "Character by character, where my heart returns is." What? The last 2 characters were identical and looked so complicated I didn't recognize them. "When did you come?" he asked hurriedly, crumpling the paper into a ball and tucking it into his sleeve, as if afraid I would see. At the time, I didn't care, only focused on urging him to help me conceive. But today, seeing this calligraphy, I immediately remembered the Crown Prince's handwriting was exactly the same as He Lanjiao's, especially the character heart. It was undoubtedly from the same hand. My mind went blank. He Lanjiao is the Crown Prince. He is even here, almost having met Xie Jingxing and me, yet he hasn't discovered yes, because he doesn't know Xie Jingxing's surname is Xie. He always believed he was surnamed Liu, my biological brother. If he were to find out, Madam Xie, I was jolted back to reality by the voice. "Ah, why isn't Physician Xie here today?" He's still at home recovering from his injuries." I was just too excited. Has His Highness the Crown Prince already left? I was quite uneasy. Fortunately, the other person mistook my unease for flattery. "His Highness is departing today. He probably won't have time for you to express your gratitude." Then I'll go back and tell Jingxing the good news." I held the scroll in my arms with a full-faced smile, but as soon as I turned out the door, my expression changed, and I ran all the way home. I was anxious to tell Xie Jingxing about this. This place was no longer safe. If the crown prince summoned him for treatment again in the future, we wouldn't be so lucky. But I was walking too hastily. Turning a street corner, I collided with a troop of horses, unable to dodge in time. I stumbled and fell against the wall. The scroll in my hand rolled to the ground. Liu Wantang, that all too familiar voice suddenly came from above me. My heart jolted violently. I steeled myself, looked up, and met He Lanzhao's eyes for a fleeting moment. He was on horseback today, dressed in riding gear, his brows cold and stern, surrounded by attendants, appearing aloof and superior. I didn't know what to say, or even how to address him. He Lanzhao frowned, staring at me with suspicion in his eyes. Why are you here? Sometimes it's just a coincidence, isn't it? I used one hand to support myself against the wall, pretending to smile as I spoke to him, while using my skirt to cover the scroll at my feet. He Lanzhao pondered, squinting slightly, tightening his grip on the reins. So you were following me? I was momentarily stunned, my eyes wide. I wasn't. Then how did you know I was here? His words were pressing, and I was left speechless. This only confirmed He Lanzhao's suspicions. He stared at me, then suddenly pursed his lips, dismounted, and walked over to me. Liu Wantang, you're not good at lying. See, you're so nervous you can't even get the words out. He stared into my eyes, but I dared not move. Just moments ago, the scroll beneath my skirt had rolled downward, nearly slipping into view. I had to stomp on it to keep it hidden. He must never see it. And besides, did you come out alone? Does your brother know? Do you realize how dangerous this is? He Lanzhao scolded me with a cold face. I couldn't understand what right he had to lecture me, so I lifted my head and met his gaze directly. Are you really that concerned about me? You haven't even been honest about who you are. He Lanzhao looked at me, hesitated, and slowly took half a step back. Just as we were locked in this standoff, the guard who had delivered the calligraphy to me arrived. He saw both me and He Lanzhao at once. His shock plain. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Lady Xie. Seeing the secret about to unravel, my heart raced, my foot slipped on the scroll, and my body pitched forward. Panic erupted around me. Your Highness, Your Highness. To protect the child in my belly, I had no choice but to use the esteemed Crown Prince as a cushion. That way, he never got a clear hearing of that title. Lady Xie. He Lanzhao was pinned beneath me, his face dark and complex, teeth grinding. In broad daylight, using such a tactic. Aren't you ashamed? I didn't mean to. Lying in his arms, I answered him with utter carelessness, all the while secretly grabbing the scroll with one hand and stuffing it into my sleeve before he could react. Then, He Lanzhao shoved me off. Liu Wantang, you've gotten so much heavier. I sat on the ground, forcing an awkward smile. Not really, right? It wasn't just my weight. He Lanzhao was helped up by the crowd. And only then did he notice the guard who had arrived. Did you deliver what I asked you to? The guard's expression was blank as he looked at me. Yes, I just gave it to. He was about to say he'd just given it to me, but He Lanzhao, irritated, cut him off. Perfect timing. Escort this Miss Liu home. Miss Liu, who's that? The guard grew more confused. Her. He Lanzhao pointed at me casually, then mounted his horse and rode on. Only after everyone had left did I slowly pick myself up. Lady Xie, why does the Crown Prince call you Miss Liu? The guard was puzzled. I answered distractedly, my surname is Liu. He probably forgot my husband's family name for a moment. So you knew His Highness all along? Then why earlier? Because we know each other, but we're not close. 07 When I got home, I handed the scroll to Xie Jingxing and explained that He Lanzhao was the Crown Prince. There's no time to waste, we need to move right away. I rushed to pack, but he caught my wrist. You said you fell, are you alright? His question caught me off guard. I shook my head first. No, then I pursed my lips. But He Lanzhao said I've gotten fat. Xie Jingxing checked my pulse, then let out a soft laugh. He has no idea. Compared to other women 4 months pregnant, you're already quite slim. Hearing that made me feel much better. So, where do you think we should move to? Xie Jingxing held my hand, thinking for a long moment. Wantang, you're still carrying the child. It's not good to travel. Since He Lanzhao has already left, I think we should wait until after you give birth before moving. He made sense that man had set off back to the capital and wouldn't return anytime soon, my heart settled a little beside me. Xie Jingxing picked up the scroll and slowly unrolled it with both hands, his gaze growing distant. Where my heart returns to is, he was looking at the calligraphy before him. But he murmured the words I'd once told him, the line Helan Zhao had written. "What are you thinking about?" I couldn't help asking. He took my hand and traced characters on my palm. "Is it this character?" "It really is." I looked at him with a surprised smile. "How did you guess? What does it mean?" "Where my heart returns to is you, my beloved." He lifted his eyes to me, opening his mouth. "Longing for home, I suppose. Nothing special." "I see, I thought it was nothing special too. So he wanted to go home all along. No wonder he left in such a hurry." Xie Jingxing didn't respond. He put the scroll away. "We have plenty of his calligraphy at home, might as well throw it away." He turned to look at me, scroll in hand, a faint smirk on his brow. "Can't waste the crown prince's brushwork. I'm thinking of having a plaque made, hanging it up to bask in the glory." I was speechless. With the crown prince's prized calligraphy on display, Xie's medical clinic became the hottest spot in town. Nobles and officials lined up for consultations. Xie Jingxing became a renowned miracle doctor. A single appointment cost a fortune. Within a month, the clinic expanded to half a street. Prescriptions, herbs, consultations, business boomed. Xie Jingxing was sharp. He hired several resident physicians and a manager to handle the herb trade. He only stepped in occasionally for tough cases, spending the rest of his time at home with me. Everyone in the city knew Dr. Xie doted on his pregnant wife like no other. 6 months later, I gave birth. Xie Jingxing stayed by my side through it all. Honestly, if I hadn't stopped him, he would have wanted to deliver the baby himself. The infant in the swaddling was beautiful and adorable. "It's a boy. He looks like you." I couldn't see the resemblance at all, though his brows and eyes did remind me of someone. "I hope he grows up to be more like me." I asked Xie Jingxing to name him. He thought for a long time, then asked unexpectedly, "Can he take your surname?" I was stunned. "Why not yours?" For a moment, I instinctively thought it was because of Helan Zhao, but Xie Jingxing looked down, focused on the baby. "I'm an orphan. Xie isn't really my surname. I just took my master's. I think it'd be better if he took yours." He looked up at me, a faint smile on his lips. "If I could, I'd take your surname too." I froze for a moment, my eyes growing a little wet. Xie Jingxing rarely spoke to me about his childhood. If it weren't for the fact that his infertility couldn't be hidden, he probably wouldn't have even admitted to being a human medicine dummy. But I could imagine, those pasts he avoided talking about must have been filled with pain and humiliation. My heart ached for him. Xie Jingxing sensed my emotions and pulled me into his arms without hesitation. "Don't be sad, you have me now." He looked down at me. "And now there's one more person. We named our child Liu Yi. When Liu Yi was 6 months old, we were preparing to move, but just before we left, an unexpected complication arose. Prefect Zhao visited late at night, bringing news the crown prince had been poisoned. He wanted to entrust Xie Jingxing with a trip to the capital. Xie Jingxing and I closed the door to discuss it. "Wanting, what do you think?" I gently pushed the cradle, watching our child's sleeping face. "We have to save him. If something really happens to him, this child might not even be able to stay." Xie Jingxing nodded. "I understand." He didn't go to the capital. Instead, he requested the crown prince's symptoms, spent several sleepless days and nights studying them, and finally produced an antidote formula. Within half a month, the crown prince woke up. Prefect Zhao was delighted to receive a promotion. He asked what reward we wanted. Xie Jingxing refused him, making only one request, that Prefect Zhao not reveal who wrote the formula. "Your Excellency, I have no interest in fame or fortune. I only wish to live quietly with my wife, hidden away from the world." Prefect Zhao had dealt with us a few times and understood our aspirations. "Don't worry, I'll keep my mouth shut." But he wasn't the type to forget a favor. Learning that Xie Jingxing and I were moving, he also found out about my original village and gifted me over a dozen acres of abandoned terraced fields near the mountains. A few days later, Xie Jingxing and I arrived at the foot of the mountain, gazing at the layered terraces. These fields have been abandoned for years. Without official approval, the villagers didn't dare to farm them. Such a waste. Many people left their homes to scrape a living. I think this could help some of them stay. I turned to look at him. You're busy with your medical practice. I want to find something of my own to do. Xie Jingxing seemed to grasp my intention. You want to build a farm estate? I nodded, raising my hand to outline my plan. Our new home will be built over there, with bamboo groves beside it and a few rows of medicinal herbs. Over here, we'll develop the terraced fields, dig irrigation channels at the foot of the mountain, and even dig a pond to try raising some fish later. I spoke with authority, my eyes full of anticipation. Xie Jingxing listened intently. Can we raise crabs? He turned to look at me. I love eating them. I suppose so. 08 We moved into our new courtyard with our son. For a long time afterward, Xie Jingxing was the one taking care of the child alone. I threw myself entirely into my farm estate venture. I went from being Lady Xie to Boss Liu every day. I left early and returned late with the craftsman, so busy my feet barely touched the ground. Of course, the initial capital still came from the money He Lanjiao had left behind after more than half a year. The estate began to take shape. The fields buzzed with activity, plowing, planting vegetables, herding geese, fishing. Everyone had their own tasks. I held an abacus in one hand and a ledger in the other, calculating from the start of the year to the end. Seeing that I had no time for him, Xie Jingxing took our son to catch crabs. The two of them, one big and one small, spent the whole day from dawn till dusk in high spirits and came back empty-handed. Meanwhile, the world was changing. For instance, the former prefect Zhao had gone to the capital to take up his post. For instance, the crown prince had successfully ascended the throne. When I learned that He Lanjiao had become emperor, I felt a vague unease deep inside. Xie Jingxing told me to relax. I won't let anyone take our child away. I sat on the swing in the courtyard, leaning back against him. Logically, now that he's an emperor surrounded by beauties, he probably won't remember me. But heaven didn't play by the rules. In April, petals fell everywhere. I was inspecting the rice seedlings when I overheard the village women gossiping. I heard the Son of Heaven is coming to our area. I froze in my tracks. That's right, I heard it too. The current emperor once fell into hardship here, and they say he's revisiting old places. Panic seized me. I turned and ran straight home. Boss, what's wrong? The steward was left bewildered in my wake. When I got home, neither the adult nor the child was there. I sent someone to call Xie Jingxing back. Then I rushed out myself to find our son playing. Xiao Yi, come home quickly. Under the willow tree at the village entrance, a crowd had gathered thick and dark. This child really looks like the emperor when he was young, like they were carved from the same mold. From a distance, I saw my son being surrounded and gawked at like some strange spectacle, and at the center of the crowd, the man crouched in front of Xiao Yi, smiling as he studied him. So similar. Even a biological child might not be this close. I recognized him. It was He Lanjiao. I stopped in my tracks and immediately turned to leave, but just then, my son's clear, ringing voice drew everyone's attention. Mama, Liu Yi pointed in my direction. That's my mother. I froze for a moment, then bolted, but the more erratic my behavior, the more suspicious I became. He Lanjiao sent people to stop me and bring me before him. Liu Wanting, how could it be you? He stared at me in shock, disbelief coloring his voice. Is this your child? I stood there, awkward and uneasy, constantly pushing away Liu Yi, who was clinging to my leg. No, it's someone else's child. I don't know him. Liu Yi clung to me like an excited puppy, impossible to shake off. Mama. I glared at him quietly. Sure. Don't call me that. My son froze, too scared to move. He Lanjiao picked him up, staring intently, his eyes gradually reddening. So you, he suddenly looked at me, his voice slightly choked. Wantang. You've worked hard all these years. I was speechless for a long moment. Actually, it's not that bad. Did he think I had raised the child alone? But then, the man wrapped one arm around my son and pulled me into an embrace with the other. It's okay, I've come to take you back to the capital. I hadn't even processed it yet. My son was also stunned. But, what about Daddy then? He Lanjiao's body stiffened, he wiped away his tears, then stared blankly at Liu Yi. What did you just say? I immediately covered my son's mouth. He said, what about the fields? Spring plowing has just begun. the farm work is heavy, and the child can't stop worrying about it. He Lan Zhao frowned, a flicker of pain flashing through his eyes. Have you been farming and raising a child all these years? Didn't I leave you plenty of money? I paused for a moment. Children are expensive. He Lan Zhao let out a soft, gentle laugh. Maybe so. Wen Tang, come back with me. You don't have to live such a hard life. All around us were his men. I took my son from his arms. Your Majesty, let's go to my house and talk there. He Lan Zhao said yes, he wanted to go back and see it too. This doesn't seem like the way home. I held Liu Yi's hand as we walked slowly, He Lan Zhao following behind us. We moved out of that small courtyard a long time ago. Villagers passing by greeted me. Elder Liu, are these relatives visiting? Elder Liu, Dr. Xie is looking for you. He Lan Zhao squinted in confusion. Who is Dr. Xie? You'll find out soon enough. Soon, we reached the doorstep, a mountain retreat, spacious views, lush vegetation, birds flitting through the veranda. You live much better than before. I have you to thank for that. He Lan Zhao made small talk with me. This garden is so big. Does your brother live here too? He does. Is he married? Does he have children? 1. I poured him tea. He Lan Zhao took a sip. The tea was cold. He Lan Zhao, I'm not going back with you. He Lan Zhao immediately stood up and grabbed my wrist. Why? Wan Tang, about what happened back then. I had my reasons. I couldn't take you with me. I understand. But the problem is, I have my reasons too. I cut him off. Then tell me, I can help you solve it. I quickly pulled free from his grip and stepped back. Mainly, I'm afraid that if I tell you, you'll lose control of your emotions and end up hurting me somehow. He Lan Zhao was stunned for a moment, then let out a helpless laugh, his voice calm. Wan Tang, you're overthinking. I've been through so much over the years. I've even walked through the gates of death several times. There's nothing left that can stir my heart. He finished the cup of cold tea, as if savoring its lingering sweetness. Only occasionally, when I think back to the time we spent together, do I feel that life is worth living. His words left me with a pang of melancholy. He Lan Zhao, actually, just then, Xie Jingxing strode in quickly. Wan Tang, my son somehow slipped out from somewhere and threw himself into Xie Jingxing's arms. Dad, you're back. Xie Jingxing caught the child. When he looked up, his eyes met He Lan Zhao's. The room fell into a dead silence. He Lan Zhao, I need to talk to you. I tugged at his sleeve. Wait a moment. He Lan Zhao squinted in confusion and stepped forward. What's going on? Shouldn't he be calling me uncle? He didn't seem to be asking anyone in particular. Maybe he was just talking to himself. He Lan Zhao turned back to stare straight at me. Did you give the child to Brother Liu as an adopted son? I opened my mouth, but words failed me. Liu Yi blinked his big eyes, looking at him like he was an idiot. Mom's brothers are uncles. This is my mom's husband, my dad. He Lan Zhao stood frozen. He Lan Zhao, let me explain properly. He turned his head, expressionless. You'd better say it quickly, I thought to myself. He really has become much more composed. Let me say it. Xie Jingxing picked up our son and walked over to me. My surname is Xie, not Liu. We are husband and wife, not siblings. He Lan Zhao stood rooted to the spot, motionless, as if his soul had left his body after who knows how long. I couldn't help calling out to him. He Lan Zhao, are you okay? He turned stiffly, staring at me in disbelief, eerily repeating my words. Am I okay? Suddenly, he flipped the table with both hands, sending it crashing with a thunderous roar. Am I okay? He started slamming the doors. Am I okay? He picked up a vase from the windowsill and smashed it to the ground. Am I okay? He kept smashing things, repeating that same phrase over and over. He had completely lost his mind. I was so frightened that I hid in Xie Jingxing's arms. Didn't he just say he'd become much calmer? Xie Jingxing shielded me and our son as we moved toward the door. Let him smash things. It's his money that bought them. Anyway, He Lan Zhao spent a full hour wrecking everything. You two, calling yourselves siblings. You tricked me like I was some fool. Then he spent another hour cursing Xie Jingxing. You bastard. By the time he walked out of the house, our family was having dinner. You can still eat. He looked at the three of us, snatched Xie Jingxing's chopsticks, and snapped them on the spot. Eat this. My son and I exchanged glances. You can go get yourself a bowl of rice too. Xie Jingxing calmly picked up a new pair of chopsticks and reached for another dish. He Lan Zhao flipped that dish over, still eating. Xie Jingxing's chopsticks froze in midair. After a moment, he let out a helpless sigh. She spent the whole afternoon making that dish. He Lan Zhao froze for an instant, then immediately looked at my face. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I forced a faint smile across from me. Xie Jingxing couldn't help but laugh out loud. Just kidding, I made that dish. He Lan Zhao's face darkened, his fists clenched tight. Xie, you're really asking for death. Xie Jingxing's expression turned serious. Don't ruin her meal, let's talk outside. They actually left, but I had lost my appetite. My son quietly began to clear the table. So that's my biological father. Xie Jingxing had never hidden Liu Yi's origins from him. So, do you want to go back with him? I asked. Liu Yi said, not now, but maybe later. I was curious. Why maybe later? Liu Yi looked at me as if I had asked the most obvious question in the world. Because I don't know him yet, and I have you and Dad here. But who knows what the future holds? Mother, do you not know that his family has a throne to inherit? I was silent for a moment. Stop dreaming. Go wash the dishes. I followed the corridor, searching for the two of them, and soon heard a fierce argument. I want to take her away. I gave you the chance to take her away back then. Back then, it wasn't the right time. Then now is even less the right time. I hurried around the corner of the covered walkway and saw He Lan Zhao shoving Xie Jingxing, pressing him back against the wall. Don't think I won't kill you. My heart jolted. He Lan Zhao, what are you doing? I pushed He Lan Zhao away in a panic and shielded Xie Jingxing firmly behind me. Whatever happened back then, take it out on me. Don't bully him. He saved your life, more than once. He Lan Zhao was utterly stunned. That divine doctor surnamed Xie was him. The lady Xie who stopped my carriage was actually you. So, you didn't go there for me either. Did you never love me? I spoke calmly. He Lan Zhao, I only wanted a child. He stared at me for a long moment, then let out an incredulous, cold laugh. So, you're saying I was just a tool? I opened my mouth, stunned. If you think that sounds bad, you could call me a fertility deity. His face suddenly darkened. Liu Wantang, say that again. I had exhausted all my kind words, but he was still being unreasonable. Why are you yelling at me? Don't you know that sleeping with me might get me pregnant? And I wanted to be honest with you, but you never gave me the chance. Have you forgotten? Back then, you kept telling me not to cling to you. He Lan Zhao, I'm not one to hold grudges, but that doesn't mean I don't remember. Those words I said weren't from the heart. Well, I don't have the ability to tell true words from false ones either. I was thoroughly annoyed by his interrogation. He Lan Zhao, we saved your life and treated you well. You were happy, weren't you? You just said you missed the time we spent together, that you felt alive. He Lan Zhao closed his eyes and laughed until tears came. That's just too interesting. I ignored him and turned to leave. He chased after me again, lowering his head, staring at me with stubborn persistence. Liu Wantang, what about me now? I've come back. What does that count for? The wind suddenly fell silent as if it, too, was waiting for my answer. Let me return those words to you as well. The status you want, I can never give you. I held Xie Jingxing firmly and walked away without looking back. He Lan Zhao stayed where he was. I thought he would leave once he'd had enough of standing there, but he stayed. I wasn't quite sure of his intentions, but I didn't drive him away either. After all, he was Xiao Yi's biological father. Xie Jingxing didn't react much to this. He even added a pair of chopsticks for him. He Lan Zhao glared at him fiercely. Don't pretend to be kind. Xie Jingxing never argued with him. He smiled amiably. I really am kind. If I had done anything underhanded, you'd be dead by now. To keep the peace, I had to separate them, seating them on either side of me. But even so, He Lan Zhao still targeted him in the dim night. When no one else was around, he stopped Xie Jingxing. Stop pretending. Your methods are very clever. You must have put in a lot of effort for her to completely disregard me. Xie Jingxing met his gaze and spoke softly. Not much. Just a little. He Lan Zhao's face turned ashen with rage. But she hasn't driven me away. Xie Jingxing looked up at the moon. Even without her saying it, Your Majesty won't be here long. You'll have to go back eventually, because you can't take her away. He Lan Zhao sneered. But I can come whenever I want. What can you do about it? Xie Jingxing's expression darkened slightly. He looked at him with calm eyes, his voice devoid of emotion. It doesn't matter, as long as the person she loves is me. As for the rest, it's like children's toys, some you play with and get tired of, some you play with and still want to play with. I don't care about any of it. He Lanjiao suddenly burst into loud laughter. Did you hear that? He insulted me. He happily pulled me out from behind the tree the moment he saw me. Xie Jingxing's body froze, his face turning pale. Liu Wanteng, you heard everything. Let's see how you pretend to be virtuous now. I let out a soft sigh. Your Majesty, you should leave. Did you hear that? She told you to leave. He Lanjiao paused, his tone turning surprised. You want me to leave? I nodded solemnly. Yes, you should go. Your Majesty is always welcome to come see the child whenever you wish. He Lanjiao stood there in a daze for a long time. I'll be back. Without another word, he glanced at me, then turned and swept away. I walked over to the man and took his hand. Jingxing, your hands are so cold. Let me warm them for you. He stared at me, stunned, his voice hoarse. Wanting, I winked at him. You're fine. No need to explain. I knew that Xie Jingxing had no parents, no relatives, no friends. No one had ever loved him, except me. He only had me. He couldn't afford to lose me. Everyone has a different starting point, whether in loving or being loved. Xie Jingxing's eyes gradually reddened. He pulled me fiercely into his arms, his voice breaking. I lied to you all along. Never leave me, okay? The cold dampness instantly soaked the fabric on my shoulder. I patted his back and responded softly. I know it all. You never fooled me. The end.